Have you ever tried Slovenian wine before? This is a tiny country in Central Europe, but it packs a lot of vinous punch. I'm going to break down the country and recommend some of my favorite producers. That's all coming up. Hello! Welcome back to Exotic Wine Travel. I am your host, Matthew Horky. Welcome back to the show where we help you drink adventurously so you can expand your palate and expand your mind. We're going to be expanding palates and minds today with wines from one of my favorite parts of Europe here, and that is Slovenia. If you ask a lot of random people, they might not even know where Slovenia is. It's really this tiny country that's kind of wedged in between Italy, Hungary, Austria, and Croatia. Sits right in the heart of Central Europe, right in the bridge to Eastern Europe. There's a long history of winemaking here. The Illyrians, the Celts were making wine way even before the Romans. Then the country was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. In 1918, it became part of the Kingdom of Yugoslavia. And then in 1991, it became independent. There's about 22,000 hectares of vineyards in the country. Just to give you an estimate, that's a little bit more than Napa Valley. And just take this for instance, Napa Valley produces only 4% of all Californian wine. The country's really built on small, family-run cellars. There's about 2,500 bottlers in Slovenia. For such a small country, that's a lot of different wine brands. Among all the countries in ex-Yugoslavia, Slovenia is held up in a high regard in terms of their wines. The climate is kind of quasi-Mediterranean all the way up to true continental in the eastern part of the country. There are high mountains, the Alps in the northern parts of Slovenia, so the cool air comes blowing down. That really has an influence on the climate. When you're choosing a wine in Slovenia, luckily, most wines are labeled by variety, so that's easy to know what you're buying. There are producers that name their wines after a cuvée name. There are also some special protected names in Slovenia, special wines, like Chianti Classico in Italy. Slovenia has some wines like Terancviček and a couple of others. The name for wine in Slovenian is vino. Bela means white, and Rdece means red. But how do you know what the dryness level is in the wine? There's going to be 4 categories, and it's going to be stated on the back of the label. First, you'll have suho, which is dry. You'll have pol suho, which is off dry. Pol sladko, which is semi-sweet. And then finally, sladko, which is sweet. They also have the German-Austrian rules for predicate wines in terms of late harvest, selected late harvest, dried berry late harvest, and ice wine, but I won't get into that in this video. On the back of Slovenian wine, you can see if it's a PGI or a PDO wine. That is a wine with protected origins. At the bottom level of quality, you're going to have Deželno vino, which is basically table wine. That's going to have PGO at the end of it. Moving up a level in quality are the types of wines that you're probably going to be buying. These are kakovostno vino. This is basically a quality wine, and you'll see a ZGP at the end of it. That basically means an appellation. Think of ZGP like DOCs in Italy, AOCs in France. DOC is also in Portugal. And at the highest level, you'll have Vrhunsko ZGP. These are wines that are made with real strict controls. Most quality producers I know bottle at the kakovostno vino level, and I think it's because it allows for a little more flexibility in the winemaking. Don't even make me try to pronounce ZGP and what that stands for. Zaščitnim geografskim poreklom. I know the Slavic languages. Slovenia is broken down into 3 wine regions, and then those regions have subdivisions or wine districts. Two of the wine regions are in the eastern part of the country, and those are Posavje and Podravje. Posavje is around the river Sava, Podravje is around the river Drava. Both of these regions are more cool climate regions, so you're going to get a lot of white grapes like Sauvignon Blanc, Lashki Riesling, which is basically Welsh Riesling, Grashevina, Pinot Gris, Gewürztraminer, Riesling, Chipon, which is known as Furment, and of course Pinot Noir, some Merlot, and some Blaufränkisch. You just have to know that Slovenians call Pinot Noir Modri Pinot and Blaufränkisch Modri Frankinja. I have to admit, it's the part of the country where I'm a little bit the weakest in terms of Slovenian wines. I'm much stronger on the western side. Posavje is probably the least heralded region for finer wines in Slovenia, but there are some impressive producers. Like I came across this one, Šuklje, he's a Frenchman making wine married to a Slovenian woman. This is the Lodomoa. This is a single vineyard Blaufränkisch, which is an outstanding wine. Shows a lot of elegance and depth. Really impressive. Other producers in that region I recommend are Keltis, Istinec, Kletprus, Sturm, and Freely. Podravje is located in the northern part of the country, the northeast part, so it's bordering Austria, Croatia, and a little sliver of Hungary. I think Sauvignon Blanc is the best here. Also, I've tasted some great Gewürztraminer, Riesling as well, Pinot Gris, and then their specialty Chipon or Furment. One of the most famous wine districts in Podravje is Steyerska, which produces some outstanding white wines. This is one of my favorite producers, actually. This is Vino Kupljen. This is the White Star. I believe this is Chardonnay, Riesling, and Pinot Gris, all blended, barrel fermented. Really rich, bigger white wines. I've also tasted a lot of surprisingly good Pinot Noir from this region. Other producers I recommend are Puklevitz, Heapsgood Winery, Johannes Pratner, Asierbais, Marov, Batič, Slapshak, Dukal, Gobal, Gons, and Dveri Pax. This part of the country is becoming hotter and hotter, and there's a lot of small cellars doing a lot of experimental wines. It's really a place to keep your eye on. It's a place I want to spend more time in the future. Do you want to try Slovenian wines? Well, there's a great option for those in the European Union. Just check out the sponsor of today's video, Vino.co. That's Vinoo.co for the biggest selection of hand-picked, high-quality Slovenian wines from boutique, family-run producers. Vino delivers Slovenian wines all over the EU, and today you can order Slovenian wine with a 10% discount as a viewer of this show. Just enter the coupon code EWT10 at checkout and share this with your wine friends so they can get this offer too. Now, back to the show. In the western part of Slovenia, that's where you'll find Primorska. It is the most prestigious region in Slovenia in terms of high-quality wines. This part of Slovenia is kind of a mild Mediterranean climate, or quasi-Mediterranean. It has influence from the Adriatic Sea, but it also has cooling influence from the Alps, and there's a lot more rain than a normal Mediterranean climate. This is also a part of Slovenia that has more unique grape varieties and very distinctive wines. Primorska is broken up into 4 wine districts. In Slovene Istra, they focus on Mavazija Istarska and Refošk. Mavazija Istarska, or Istrian Mavazija, is a wine that can be floral. It can be pretty high alcohol. This is the Korenikia and Moškon. Paderno. This wine is macerated, it's heavy, minimal intervention in style, but the skins on Mavazija Istarska are sweet and the tannins are so lovely. I personally prefer the grape to be done in this style. In Slovene Istra, you'll also find the grape Refošk, which is a crazy, wild, untamed red grape. Can have flavors of rusty nail, a lot of wild berries, sometimes blackberries, mulberries, iron, chewy tannins, and sharp acidity. When it's done really well, I think it can resemble Northern Rhone's Syrah. On the other side, when it's too acidic, sometimes it can be enamel stripping and you really need food. This is a brand new producer in Slovene Istra. This is the Zaro. This is the Refošk. Interesting wine. High in acidity, but you have some of those unique Refošk flavors. Other producers that I recommend in Slovene Istra are Rajman, Koper, Rodica, Rojac, Bordon, Gordia, and Klabien. move a little bit more north, you have Kras, which is a limestone plateau. It's an extension of the Carso in Italy. Here you'll also find these grapes, Malvasia Istarska and also Refošk, but you'll find some nice Merlot, also some odd grapes like Vitovska, Pinella, Zelen, those grapes that you find in Vipava. The wines there can be a little bit rustic, but really full of mineral flavors. Some producers that I recommend are Shotar, Lisiak, Stemberger, and Skrl. Bordering Kras is the gorgeous Vipava Valley. This is a corridor that really connects Central and Eastern Europe. This is a breathtakingly beautiful region. I remember the first time going there, just taking the long drive through the valley and just being in awe. In terms of area dedicated to vineyards, this is the second largest wine district in Slovenia, only second to Štajerska in Podravje. Here for red grapes, you'll find fabulous Merlot, some excellent Pinot Noir, and some very interesting Barbera. Cabernet Sauvignon is also grown. You'll also see Blaufränkisch. Whites is where it gets really exciting in Vipava. You'll see things like Rebula, also known as Rebula Gialla, Chardonnay, Pinot Blanc, Sauvignon Blanc. Then you'll find really interesting grapes like Zelen, Pinella, Vitovska. There's also plenty of small, minimal intervention cellars. I have some of my favorites right here, like the excellent Rebulas from Mlečnik or Svetlik. Mlečnik is one of the guys that kind of kicked off this macerated wine movement along with Gravner, Radicon, right across the border in Italy. I mean, his vineyards are basically a stone's throw from the Italian border. You have newcomers to the game like Guerila. I stayed up at their winery once on a press trip high above the valley. Incredible biodynamic wines, and the wines keep improving with every vintage. I get more and more impressed the more I taste them. You also have some extreme wines like this Burja Bela, which is basically a blend. I think it's a Rebula, Lashki Riesling, Malvasia, and then some other random grape varieties, just like this Batič Zaria, and also this Sveti Mihael from Jink. These are three of my favorite producers in Slovenia. The wines can be a little bit crazy sometimes, but I really enjoy them. And then you have more classically styled wines like Tilia. Tilia is known for his Pinot Noirs, which can be a little bit bigger, a little bit more Burgundian style. They have tannins, they really need time to soften, and they need age. Other producers in Vipava that I recommend include Slavček, Lavrenčič, Vina Biziak, Bertze, and Krapej. And last but not least, you have Gorisca Berta, or Berta for short. This is an extension of Collio in Italy. Actually, it might be considered the other way around because there's a lot more vineyards in Gorisca Berta than there are in Collio, Italy. There's a strong Italian influence here, a lot of hilltop towns, steep vineyards. It really looks like Piedmont, Italy, because you have the Alps in the background. This region has the reputation for a long time of producing some of Slovenia's best wines. Gorisca Berta has just fantastic terroir, fantastic positions for vineyards. I remember my friend, who's a producer of wines in Istria, Croatia, said one time, you know what, those guys in Gorisca Berta have such good positions, sometimes I think you could just throw the grapes out and the wine's great. In Gorisca Berta, you'll find a lot of the grapes that you find across the border in Friuli, Venezia Giulia. That means you're going to find things like Rebula, aka Rebula Gialla, Friulano, which they also call Yakult or Sauvignonesi. You'll also find things like Picolet, Malvasia Istarska. You'll also find some international white grapes like Pinot Gris, Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Blanc, Chardonnay. For reds, most of the best examples are Merlot with some Cabernet Sauvignon blended into it. I actually did a blind tasting of the top Slovenian red blends up against some top flight Italian wines. I'll put that in the description box below. There is a little bit of Pinot Noir to be found in Gorisca Berta, but I think it's more of a place for Merlot. Like the rest of Primorska, orange wine, macerated wine, amber wine is really the focus here, although there's a lot of classically styled whites as well. There are also some of my favorite wines in Slovenia. I mean, you have the high quality guys, Eddie and Marjan Simčič. Eddie Simčič making classically barrel fermented style wines. Marjan Simčič making more classical style wines, although he makes also some macerated white wines. Also makes the best Pinot Noir in this part of the world for me. Guys like Šuklje, another crazy guy. If you see him, he's always wearing sunglasses at wine shows. I really like his house style. Big barrel fermented rich white wines, maybe just a touch of maceration. You have the Frenchman Jean-Michel Cabaye making wines there. You also have interesting classically styled wines like Jakončič, another one of my favorite producers, also makes outstanding Merlot. You also have real hardcore minimal intervention guides, Klinets. He also has a guest house, makes fantastic food, and the wines are just really extraordinary. Only macerated wines and a couple reds. Then you have the cooperative, Berta, 480 growers that still own the winery, and a lot of these guys or their families got their start in Berta when Slovenia was part of ex-Yugoslavia. And of course you can't talk about Slovenian wines without mentioning Movia, the eclectic, crazy winemaker, really kind of helped put Slovenian wines on the world wine map. Makes some excellent wines, some crazy wines like sparkling wine named Pearl, where you have to disgorge it comes upside down. Lunar, where you have to decant it and you lose this much sediment. And as crazy and as loud as the guy is, I think the wines are actually beautiful wines, especially with age. Other producers in Gorisca Berta I recommend are Erzatich, Biana, Kristenčič, Konstantini, Medo, Blažič, and Gasper. You gotta know though, since this is one of the more prestigious areas in Slovenia, that means the prices are a little bit higher. With so many wine growers and so many bottlers in Slovenia, you're bound to find new discoveries. Like myself, there's always new wines to discover. In doing some of my articles about Slovenian wine, these are some producers that I tasted for the first time. Patrick Simčič, a young guy. Emran Raya, a guy that's rebooting his brand. I really like some of his macerated wines. Mulit, making only one white, one red. Really impressed. More Friulian style of wine. Then you have other crazy guys like Ronk and Jure Stekar and Gorisca Berta making some interesting wines. And also, this is a new guy on the scene that I didn't really know about. Koltus, his red white blend, really good wines. And also you have the old cooperative Vipava 1894. Well, it's now a negociant in the Vipava Valley. That's the cool thing about Slovenia and wine in general. There's always something new to discover. So I'd love to know, have you heard of Slovenian wines? Are you drinking Slovenian wines? What do you think of them? Let me know in the comments below. Stay tuned to our website, exoticwinetravel.com, for several articles on some of my favorite Slovenian wines of the last year. And I will see you soon.
Hello, thanks for watching.
Hey, you made it to the end. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, click the bell so you know when new videos are out. If you like content like this, check out our Patreon page where you get some behind the scenes exclusive content. Thanks for watching. Cheers.
Cheers.